Bob, you weren't kidding. You really should be dead.
I really should be. Yeah, I've been shot and stabbed in a couple car wrecks where people died. Everybody died except for me, and God knows how many overdoses of drugs I've taken.
In his new book, I Should Be Dead, Bob Beckel explains how he survived politics, TV, and addiction. He took his last drink and drug on January 19, 2001, the night before George W. Bush's first inauguration. Beckel was mad it was Bush, not Gore, who was heading to the White House.
And I went down to a biker bar in southern Maryland, and I was at the bar trying to pick this woman up. She was very attractive, and I felt something behind me, and I turned around. Her husband was there with a .45 caliber right in my face, and he pulled the trigger, and it didn't go off. He hadn't chambered the bullet. Somebody grabbed him from behind, and it blew a 3-foot hole in the ceiling. So they threw me out in the parking lot, and just before I passed out, I remember saying, God, I really don't believe, but if you do exist, that's the last drink I'll ever have.
He woke up in the VIP room of a Washington psychiatric ward. To add insult to injury, he could hear Bush's inaugural parade while lying in his bed. The story of Beckel's self-destruction to that point is extraordinary. One of only 2 photos in his new book include his father, a brilliant man who was also a drunk.
I came from a dysfunctional family, very dysfunctional, and my father used to find great humor in throwing me down the stairs. And, you know, back then, you went to school and you were all beat up and nobody said anything.
Bob's passion for politics started as a young boy, first in 1960, watching his father support John F. Kennedy, and later with his dad's involvement in the civil rights movement. Ironically, it was the beatings from the hand of his dad that taught him to thrive in Washington.
As a survivor, you learn how to talk fast, cut deals, lie when you have to. Perfect training to be a politician, you know. So when I got out, I did very well in the business, and in Capitol Hill is full of survivors. The problem is if you don't turn and face your demons, it's going to catch up with you.
You arrived in Washington on your birthday, 1972, with very little money, absolutely no prospects. 5 years later, you're sitting in the Oval Office briefing President Carter. That's extraordinary.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's for a guy that grew up the way I grew up. But then, because I didn't have faith, I couldn't figure it out. I kept waiting every day for the Secret Service to come into my office and say, "Oh, you fraud, get out."
Throughout his storybook career advising congressional campaigns across the country, Beckel made millions that ended up financing vacation homes for his drug dealers.
I used to wake up and look out my window at the front of my car to be sure there's no blood on it, that I hadn't hit anybody.
He eventually lost his business, his marriage, and his once flush bank account. There at his lowest point, sitting on a rock in the middle of a field in Maryland, Beckel called out to God.
God, I don't know if you exist, and this is probably the worst thing for me to do, to ask you the first time out, if you could help me with some money, but I need money really badly. And this was out a mile back on a dirt road. Next day, I went out to the mailbox, and always junk mail. Nobody ever sent me anything. And I opened it up, and there was a letter addressed to me. And there was a check inside for $20,000 from a guy that owed me that for 15 years. So I hurried down to the bank. I said, "Is this any good?" And he said, "Yeah, it's good. It's fine. We'll put it right in." Now, you know, people could say that was just coincidence, but I don't think God's in the business of necessarily doling out $20,000, but I think that, you know, he gives you free will, and including free will is the will to seek faith in him and through Jesus Christ. And if you do that, you will be rewarded for it. I believe that.
Conservative columnist and friend Cal Thomas helped lead Beckel to Christ, and reading the Bible made him rethink some of his positions.
When I came to faith, I was on pro-choice boards, you know, and I dropped off of those because you couldn't read the Bible and be pro-choice.
But he still considers himself a liberal Democrat.
I still believe that there are, you know, tonight someplace in this city, a child's going to be born to a crack addict mother and someplace tonight in this city in the rich suburbs, a white kid will be born to wealthy parents, and I just don't believe they have an equal shot at life. And unless and until I'm confident that everybody has an equal shot at the American dream, then I'm going to remain a liberal in the sense that I do believe that the government has a responsibility, along with charities and others, to help that child till they're 18 years old.
Now he works with addicts, leading interventions to get people into rehab.
It's important for me because it keeps it green, you know. It reminds me of what it was like.
It's become his ministry.
You know, there's no greater reward, I think, than taking somebody who's terminally ill. Most people get shy away from it, but holding their hands and walking them over to the Jordan and handing them off, you know, to a better place.
Digging up his past was hard, but Beckel says unburdening himself is liberating. Now more than ever, he's reveling in a life that's joyous, happy, and free.
There was a huge hole in my stomach, you know, that I kept filling with drugs and alcohol. And now I fill it with God, and it's a much better way to go, and he won't make you sick, you know.
Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Washington.